Would you please do us the honor of leading us in the pledge?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd be glad to do that. Ladies and gentlemen, again, we live in the greatest country in the world, so let us pledge our allegiance both to our country and our flag. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right. Oral communication. The public may speak on any item not on the printed agenda. No action may be taken by the board. Is there anyone that would like to speak under oral communication?
Well, okay. The Red Cross was announcing today that they need blood donations, so if anybody feels like donating. And I would like to talk a little bit about trash. I talked to Diane, I think, yesterday. And I think in 2016, we had 4,000 more tons of trash than we did in 2015. And my understanding is that we have even more trash in 2017 than we did in 2016. So we're supposed to be diverting 75% of our trash by 2020, and we're not even getting close. So when I went to the health fair, thank you for giving me a break so I could get my flu shot, I saw a Dixie there, and we were talking about her failure to get a response from Waste Management on sharps disposal. They wanted to do sharps disposal at the Take Back Day. And so I got Waste Management to talk to me on their behalf. So they will not collect sharps at Take Back Day. And so we have a problem with disposing of sharps in our community. Sonora Regional won't take them. I talked to Liza Ortiz when she was still here, when she was fairly new. The pharmacies won't collect them. So you have to get your own little red sharps disposal container and take it out to Waste Management. But I've only found 5, I think, in the trash until this day. This was the day after the Take Back Day. This didn't have a cap on it at the time, but I found all these in the trash. And I guess people go to the Take Back Day to dispose of sharps, and then they get mad. So these were all in the trash, and that's not where our sharps belong. So they have a sharps container downstairs. And then the only other place I know that has sharps containers is the restrooms at Black Oak Casino. So I don't really think as the public we should be sending our citizens with their sharps to Black Oak to dispose of the community sharps. So we need to do something about this problem. So maybe when we get a public health director, or maybe our little substitute could do something, but this becomes a problem. So I thought I would have show and tell today. And then we still need to talk about trash because you donated that $5,000 for the city of Sonora to recycle, and they're still not recycling. We have those recycle cans. Everything goes in the trash. They got picked up for a couple weeks after the 9-month not getting picked up, and then for 4 weeks they weren't picked up again, and then Waste Management told me they were coming by to check what was in there, if it was trash or recycling. But checking does not mean emptying. So I'm at 3,400 pounds now. So I will dispose of these downstairs. I'm sorry?
So 10.5.
Yes. So I figure I'm hoping to reach 4,000 pounds by the end of the month because the restaurants a lot of them have been very nice about donating me their wine bottles. So it's 2 bottles for a penny, so I have $4 and something for that bathroom downtown. And I have over a ton of glass, so thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Tanya Allen, Supervising Engineer of the Community Resources Agency. I just wanted to inform you, if you recall, one of our projects in our surface treatment list was Jacksonville Chip Seal, and we just got notification that We received $146,000 of a RAC grant, which is a recycled asphalt from Cal Recycle. So as part of that too, I attended a CSAC conference in which we had a transportation policy meeting, and one of the topics was, as you know, your Jacksonville chip seal project is part of your SB1 list. They had some information about all the myths of SB1. So I presented down the dais this information, and there's a couple in the back. So, and if anybody has any questions on that, feel free to contact me at my office. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Honorable Board. Rob Kostlevy, Community Resources Agency, Environmental Health Division. I just wanted to inform the Board that our agency has applied and received funding for our Coupa program. So the dollar amount is $100,000 to help offset any costs associated with our hazmat program, the Coupa. So I just wondered if you had any questions on that. I just wanted to let you guys know that it's a good thing.
Good job.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And one more. Hello, Sheila Shanahan, Housing Program Coordinator. As you might recall, last July your board approved a resolution for the No Place Like Home Technical Assistance Grant in the amount of $75,000, and that's through the State Department of Housing and Community Development. And we just received word that our application was approved and we'll be receiving the $75,000. And this is money for permanent supportive housing for people who are experiencing homelessness and who have mental illness. So our department, Community Resources, will be working with behavioral health over the next year on that project.
Good job.
Thank
Well,
you.
Merry Christmas to you.
Thank you very much.
Christmas
Sheila.
time.
Exactly.
My name is David Peters. Good morning. First of all, I wanted to, I don't know if I can do this or not, but I want to apologize on behalf of the people who are against the marijuana industry coming into Tuolumne County, because we were late in coming to the dance. And I realize that the board and committees have put in a lot of time dealing with the issue and have come up with a lot of recommendations that should have had input before this point. Whether we were unaware or complacent, it doesn't matter. So I'd like to apologize to the board for that. But we are here now, and we'll be here throughout the duration. Hopefully that was apparent at the meeting at the Opera Hall. Will continue to be apparent as necessary. Hopefully you all saw the over 500 signatures on the papers asking the board not to do anything in regards to instituting those regulations, and we'll continue to do that. I'm hoping that Tuolumne County can avoid the problem that Calaveras County is now facing. They were seduced into getting into bed with the marijuana industry with the promise of money. Now they're going through a messy divorce. And I would like to see Tuolumne County avoid that same fate. So I would like to encourage the board to consider that. Also, I noticed on the agenda is a user fee study process.
So any comments on any items on the agenda?
Oh,
need
on
to
the
be when
agenda,
the
okay,
item is
okay.
heard. Thank you.
I won't talk about that. I will talk about my experience in the past on the welfare department as a social worker when we had to do time studies in the welfare department to verify to the state that we were spending the proper amount of time that they were allocating the funds for. And I noticed that under the marijuana regulations that were passed in this state, that the county will only be allowed to charge the actual cost of enforcement for the marijuana regulations that they institute, which means the county employees will be doing like I did as a social worker, spending half a day a week filling out forms for every 15 minutes of what we did during the week to verify to the state that our cost was verified in the actual money that they were sending to the county. That's going to be across the board in all law enforcement and public agencies. The state will, I can guarantee you, require you to verify those amounts. That's going to add a huge, huge burden to the county. And when we tried to say, well, we didn't actually spend the time on that, our supervisors came back and told us, you have to change your study because otherwise we won't get the funding. So we were told to lie again and again so that we would get the funding from the state for what we were doing. That same kind of thing is going to happen with the marijuana stuff. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board, and most of all, the public of Tuolumne County, my name is Randy Hanvelt, big fan of the Columbia College Community Chorus. They finished their Sounds of the Season event this last weekend. Much success there. Thank the public for coming and joining in. And many of you missed it. I was taking names. But you have one more chance. One more chance. On Sunday, this coming Sunday, I guess that's the 7th? That's 7th? No, that's the 10th. At the Church of the 49ers, they will be doing a Messiah sing-along. Handel's Messiah. They'll perform the whole thing, and you're invited to come, participate, and sing along. So I'll look forward to seeing you all there. Standing room only, I'm sure.
What time was that event?
Pardon?
What time?
3 o'clock in the afternoon. Thank you.
Right. Is there any other public comment? Seeing none, will the clerk please read the consent calendar?
Minutes of the meeting held November 21st, 2017, approving the revisions to the 2017-18 allocated positions, approving the 125 premium-only plan documentation, authorizing the chair to sign, adopting a resolution continuing the local state of emergency as required by the California Emergency Services Act, Article 14, Section 8630C, due to the pervasive tree mortality, approving correspondence in support of the California Department of Fish and Wildlife Petition 1 grant application for Nuteria eradication plan funding, approving the appointment of Peter Haddell and Victoria Bombay Carlson to the Tuolumne County Commission on Aging, and reappointing Tyler Somerset and Leon Cassis to the same commission.
Would any member like an item pulled? Is there any public comment? All right, I'm going to bring this back.
Move it on the consent calendar.
Second.
I have a motion from Supervisor Rotifer, a second from from Supervisor Hanfeld. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Will the clerk please read item 7?
Consideration of adopting a resolution rescinding Resolution 2893 and 2688 and establishing new procedures for low-value exemptions from property tax on personal property and proprietary interest.
Good morning, Chairwoman, members of the board. Kanan Whitman, Assessor Recorder. Today I'm requesting that your board approve a resolution increasing the minimum assessed value on the unsecured roll from $2,000 to $5,000 and exempt possessory interest at the fairgrounds of up to $50,000. In short, this will allow my office to direct its resources in a more productive manner and provide tax relief to over 240 small businesses and owners of boats and mineral rights. Remember that the accounts that would receive this tax relief are accounts where the assessed value is below $5,000. This will save staff time from reporting, auditing, and mailing over 1,100 different accounts. And additionally, these accounts tend to have a higher percentage of non-reporting, which results in additional staff time and also penalties for taxpayers. For the fairgrounds, this would allow us to dispense with having to do a detailed analysis which considers the anticipated term of possession with durability and degree of exclusiveness granted in a lease or a permit holder, which will save us, again, just save us time from the scenario just described. So I recommend that your board rescind Resolution 28-93 and 26-88, adopting the current which adopted current procedures for low-value exemptions for personal property and mobile home accessories, and adopt a resolution establishing a new procedure for low-value exemptions for personal property, increasing the low-value personal property exemption from $2,000 to $5,000, and adding a low-value exemption in the amount of $50,000 for possessory interest in temporary use of publicly owned fairground facilities, convention facilities, and cultural facilities.
Are there any questions?
Has County Council reviewed this? Okay, thank you.
Is there any public comment? All right, I'm going to bring this back.
Second.
I have a motion from Supervisor Royce, a second from Supervisor Hanfeld. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Will the clerk please read item 8?
Consideration of reserving $420,409 dedicated to the tree mortality for the general fund back to general reserves and reestablishing the same level of tree mortality funding by recognizing CAL FIRE local assistance grant revenue.
Ms. Riggs.
Good morning, Tracy Riggs, County Administrator's Office. The item before you today is consideration of taking the $420,000 that we have that was left over from what we used prior from last fiscal year. We carried it into this fiscal year and putting it back into reserve. For part of a background, in fiscal year 2016-17, your board took from reserve $670,495 to meet the 25% share of cost as required by the California Disaster Assistance Act. The $420,409 is what we carried over from 2016-17 into the 17-18 year that was unused to continue to use towards match. During this current fiscal year, the CAL FIRE was allocated funding $3 million that could be used for the high hazard zone counties. I'm sorry, $6 million. $3 million would be of an equal distribution. So there's $6 million that was allocated in the governor's budget to CAL FIRE to help the 10 high hazard zone counties meet the 25% match. Therefore, counties would have no share of cost for the tree mortality work. This grant is the way that it's allocated, as I reflected in your memo, is $3 million of that. It goes $300,000 per county, and then the other remaining $3 million is allocated based on the number of dead trees. Tuolumne County's allocation is $806,652, $1 different than what's in your memo because I have the actual grant guidance now. What you will see in there is Tuolumne County was awarded the second highest amount, again, second behind Fresno County. Fresno County and Tuolumne County are the only counties who have continued to do consistent tree mortality work as well. This grant will allow us to go back and use this as match retroactively to July 1st of this fiscal year. So what we are recommending is that your board consider taking that $420,409 and put it back into reserves, which per your memo you will see would give us a total reserve amount of $2,049,914. I've also included the budget and accounting language within this recommendation. We did work with Debbie Batista, our auditor controller. She's in concurrence with this, and so I'm more than happy to answer any questions. And as I did say in the memo, they would be releasing the grant guidance soon. We just got it yesterday afternoon, perfect timing, and I want to make sure that you and our and the public realize that this is not a competitive grant. These are allocations, so it is an absolute given that that's the amount we will receive.
Supervisor Rotifer.
Yeah, I just have a couple questions. First of all, let's assume that we're going to do the smart thing and put the $420,000 plus back into our reserve account. How much total will we have drawn down the reserves to date for tree mortality? Do you have that number?
Well, I can get it for you, but it's a difference between the 670 and the 420, so I'd just have to.
So it'll be about 250.
It's close, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the other question that I've got is, if we're going to get 806,652, but we're really only going to spend 420,409. what's the other 386,243? What are we going to do with that? Where is that going to go? And is that future year money?
Right. So this grant goes until January 2020, which is
Okay.
good news. So the 420 is all we had left from what your board had taken from reserves to carry forward. This
Sure.
actually gives us more to go into the future for
Okay.
future years. Yes. So we have 2 years to expend the funds.
And then the last question I have is, have we explored the possibility, and I don't want to, cheat any system or anything like that, but we're adding wear and tear. We're, in some cases, tearing up our roads as we do this. Is there any way that we can claim that additional wear and tear as part of, repairing that additional wear and tear as part of the tree mortality effort?
The answer is no. We did explore that, and we've been told no. It's only to remove the dead and dying trees.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
All right. Any other questions?
I'd just like to comment that, look, the size of this grant is a clear tribute to the effort put on by our tree mortality team. We got out ahead of the game. We were the lead county. Fresno has kind of caught up and maintained pace with us now, but the others didn't do that early in the game. Some of them are barely getting started even now, 2 years into this game, or more than 2 years into this game. Unfortunately, that grant wasn't retroactive to the beginning, which would have been nice. But it's a clear tribute to the success and the amazing effort that our team did, and I want to congratulate them on that. It's a recognition of an outstanding effort.
Absolutely.
Led, I might add, by you.
Correct.
No.
No, I'm serious. You're shy, but it was led by you.
I don't think shy is the
Shy.
right word. Maybe a little humble.
Humble. He's not shy. You're right. Absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Oh.
I was.
Sorry, team, I tried to congratulate you.
I was going to get there at the end of this process, but I'm just going to dovetail on and witnessing this in action. This really is a tribute to the tremendous effort that Tuolumne County has put on, and yes, led by you, Supervisor Hanfield. And I think it would be also appropriate. We reach out with communication so often to express our displeasure with certain actions, and I think it would be appropriate to reach out and say thank you.
Okay.
So if there's no other questions of the board members, I'll ask if there's any public comment.
That's why I love Tracy so much. You get us a lot of money, and you do too. So I read a lot of crap directed at this board, and I don't see a lot of people here, and they should be, because this is one of the things that you all have been so outstanding about, is getting us money. So people really, I'm looking forward to reading some Facebook comments on how fabulous this is. Thank you.
Ms. Dowd, this was a little like Merry Christmas today. This is the fourth time we've heard about money.
All right. Any other public comment? I'm going to bring this back to the board.
Madam Chair, I want to move in favor of the staff recommendation, and I want to congratulate the team.
Second.
I have a motion from Supervisor Hanfeld, a second from Supervisor Rotifer. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Will the clerk please read item 9?
Consideration of approving a contract with Client First Technology Consulting for the telecommunications and network implementation project management.
Mr. Richardson.
Good morning, Daniel Richardson, Deputy County Administrator. With me, I have Bob Chapman, our IT Manager, and Tom Wyman with Client First Technologies. At our last board meeting, your board approved a contract with Maverick to install a new phone system and improve the county's network. We have a team that's been preparing for this day to actually install the new network and the new phone system. And Client First, I looked back on our records, they've been a partner in preparing us for this day for 3 years now. been amazing. They've just some of the things that they've done for us in the past. They helped us write the request for proposals that selected this phone system. They also developed some specifications and evaluate the proposals so we could make the fiber connection between the Kalamazoo Basin IT and the Law and Justice Center. And also the library was in there. And now they helped coordinate the phone system analysis and have prepared us to actually install this system. The contract that we have before the board today is for $247,950, and I have asked Mr. Wyman to describe the services they will now provide the county for this implementation.
Thanks. Our focus here is to provide the county with project management assistance and implementation consulting. We do these kinds of implementation and project management projects all over the country, and that's all I do is voice over IP implementation and project management services. So we will be coordinating a lot of moving parts related to the implementation of the new system, which would include new services from AT&T as far as carrier services. It'll include interacting certainly with the county's IT department and the implementation of the data network, which needs to be implemented first. And then the planning and implementation of the new voice over IP system that's going to replace the existing NEC phone system that exists today. That process is, as I said, has a lot of moving parts and a lot of coordination that needs to take place. So our responsibility is to make sure that not only the vendors all perform and hit the dates on time, but also that we work with the county and have and make sure that the team gets all the pieces and parts put together too for the project.
Supervisor Gray.
I may have asked this question before. Our timing on this, when do we start? When do we anticipate it having it done?
Bob Chapman, IT manager. We have already started the project, getting the infrastructure in place to be able to support this. The phones will start going in earnest. We'll plan and start that in April. And take about a 6 to 8 month implementation time to get it done.
We're going to start in this building first, right?
We haven't quite determined. We haven't quite determined the schedule yet, but we will certainly make sure.
No, all right. Thank you. I know we'll start where it's the most important place to start.
Thank you.
Supervisor Royce.
Yeah. So does that operate just based off the current wiring we have in all our buildings? 2-pair or single pair?
Actually, we will abandon quite a bit of the old Cat 3 cable that supports our current phones, and we'll be using the same cable we use for our data network.
Oh, it just splices or
it can work together, so they can be daisy-chained on the same cable.
Got a little switch or whatever.
The phone actually acts as a switch in this case.
Perfect.
That's
easy.
We will have to modify a couple of buildings and add cabling, and that was an item that was put on last board agenda.
Okay.
So
perfect.
Any other questions? Is there any public comment?
I just wanted to say to Supervisor Gray, we need to improve the phones where the people are making the money. So
Right.
billing, revenue and recovery, tax collection.
I think it's all in this building, I'm pretty sure.
Any other public comment? All right, I'm going to bring this back to the board.
I'll move on the recommendation.
Second.
I have a motion from Supervisor Royce, a second from Supervisor Gray. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, gentlemen. Will the clerk please read item 10?
Consideration of approving dates and process for developing an agenda for the Board of Supervisors 2018 Planning Retreat.
So, Madam Chair.
Mr. Pedro.
Members of the board, we're getting ready for next year's board planning retreat, and one of the first orders of business was seeing if we could still have Bill Chiat with the Alta Mesa Group if he was going to be available for us this year, and he is not. The guy's actually taking a couple of months off, right when we would need him. But in his place, and with his recommendation, we have secured the services of Laurie Kiley with the Kiley Group, and there's a nice biography piece that's attached showing a very distinguished career in education and training, highly decorated, awarded facilitator that will be leading the charge this year for your board and department heads. So there's a couple things we need to do in advance of the retreat. First was to set the date for the retreat, but that got narrowed pretty quickly, given that we're trying to do this early in January, February as we can, and just doing a little Google Doodle with your board and Ms. Kiley. It looks like the only dates that are available concurrently are going to be February 1st and 2nd, so that's a Thursday and Friday. And so that's the recommendation, is we go ahead and pick that as the date for your retreat. And I have been asked, might we return to where we went last year, being Rush Creek, and right now it looks like that is available. So we're trying to see if we can head back there. And then the second item is setting an agenda. What we have done in the past was to work with the facilitator. Again, before it was Bill Chiat. Now this would be working with Ms. Kiley, where she would call individual members, get your ideas individually, try to merge those ideas and priorities. I would work with her in putting those things together. When in doubt, I would be working with the incoming chair, which this next year will be Supervisor Handvelt. And we can do that same process, which seems to have worked, or we could try to come up with the agenda just amongst the board. So really, those are the two things before you today, is setting those dates, and then what process would you like to follow for setting the agenda for the retreat?
So I have one question. We had some conversation at the end of last year's retreat about doing this a half a day Wednesday, a full day Thursday, and a half a day Friday to allow us a little more time to interact as a board and have more time, have the entire day on Thursday with staff, because we all felt that we were cut a little bit short last year, and that is so important, that opportunity to really have the time to hear from staff. And so I know it would cost these board members a little bit more if we were spending an additional night up there, but did we explore using that kind of a format?
I'm sorry, I didn't recall that we were going to do that, but that's my bad. But I could certainly go back and check everyone's availability for that. So that would be, let's see, so that would be January 31st through February 2nd. If that's what you would like, is you could.
Well, I'd certainly like to have a conversation, let the board have a conversation if they, I think there would be a tremendous advantage in formatting it that way.
I recall the same.
Right.
I do as well, and it was as I recall, it wasn't just like what if. It was I thought there was a lot of interest in doing that kind of a format.
Well, you could direct that, and then.
And I don't know about the rest of the board members, but I'd be willing, if Wednesday, Thursday, Friday doesn't work, Thursday, Friday, Saturday morning, I wouldn't mind doing that either.
That's fine.
That'd be good to give some flexibility for Laurie.
Would you be all right with that, Supervisor Royce?
Yeah. That have that 3-day combination, preferably the Wednesday through Friday, but if need be, Thursday through Saturday.
Correct.
Okay.
All right.
I just take that as direction.
Direction. Okay.
And then creation of the agenda.
I'm okay with the way we've done it in the past. I felt strongly when I was the incoming board chair, and I still feel strongly that the tie goes to the incoming board chair on agenda items and how he wants it run. But I'll be glad to give my input.
And I concur with that also.
So get input,
and then
we'll put it together in draft form, review that with the incoming chair.
Yes.
Okay, I'll take that as direction, and we're good.
Is there any public comment?
Well, I think you need a new facilitator, so that makes me very happy. But Rush Creek is really far away. And that's an ordeal, not only for if anyone from the public wants to go, but that's a lot of staff people driving up there. And last year the weather was bad.
It's close to my house, so.
Well, I understand that, but maybe you should share the wealth and not go to the same place twice. And I'm kind of opposed to, well, it's closer for you, I understand that. But it's like an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours. I think Oak Lodge was, whatever that was. That was like an hour and a half. I thought I was going to Timbuktu. And so I didn't go to Rush Creek because that was too far for me, which may be why you moved it there. But I just think that's really far. You know, and people need to participate and see what happens and see what the goals are being set and have something to say. So I just think that's a little far. And I don't think you should go to the same place twice and allow another resort area to benefit from your presence.
Any other public comment? All right.
I think
Mr.
I have direction.
I believe you have direction.
One comment about as far as staff being able to attend. There's a possibility we might want to work with Darren at TCTC. Maybe we could run a shuttle up there for the day.
We could look into that. I know a lot of folks carpooled, last year.
Yeah.
And it might be a question that we can ask at the end of this retreat if those locations are problematic for department heads to, attend.
If the weather's bad, we can always use the ski bus, right?
There you go, yards.
All right. It's part of it. Will the clerk please read item 11?
Consideration of providing staff direction on strategic changes to the Board of Supervisors Committee Organizations Partnership Handbook.
Mr. Pedro.
Okay, Madam Chair, members of the board, as you know, each year, I'm just going to shorten that title to your committee handbook, that we typically come to you with just updates that either we've heard through the year that you'd like to have made to your committees or just technical changes, and that just comes to you as a comprehensive document. But this year, I want to approach it a little differently, one in response to some comments we've heard from board members, partly in response to some comments that we'd heard from the grand jury, was to look at your committees and other organizations you participate in and see if there's some things that you may want to no longer want to participate in, or perhaps have staff participate in lieu of board members. It just depended. And so this year we wanted to break this process up. So as part of phase one, I did meet with the current chair and vice chair this year, and again asked the questions, kind of walk through your different committees and walk through them, asking the questions: one, whether or not the committee is still needed; two, whether or not the county should continue participating in same; and three, if staff could attend meetings of some committees, commissions, and organizations in lieu of board members. So this really is the subject of this item, and once I receive some direction on these items, we can go back and deal with other minor technical changes and bring back to you a completed proposed handbook for consideration of adoption, which is also important for the incoming chair to have, so he or she knows, who they're making appointments or what committees are making appointments to. So I did meet with the chair and vice chair, and on the second page of your memo, it's summarized areas that we wanted to look at. And let me just walk through these briefly, and then we can go back and look at them in detail. First, there was a question about the Public Protection Committee, because it rarely meets. Actually, it's been a couple years since it's really met. Doesn't seem to be a lot of activity or demand for that particular committee. There was also a question of whether or not we could perhaps combine that with the Emergency Medical Care Committee. And I'll just say, so if you look at item 1, that's Public Protection Committee. Item 6 is Emergency Medical Care Committee. They really are two different breed of cats. We just confirmed when we were talking that they really are two different things, two different missions, two different compositions. So combining those really wouldn't work. But the recommendation would be to eliminate public protection due to inactivity. And there was just one technical change that would be made under emergency care. Airport Advisory Committee was one where there was just a question whether board members still needed to, that we definitely wanted to keep that committee, a question of whether or not we could go to something other than board representation on that committee. And again, we'll be able to allow the two supervisors to sit on that committee. It's traditionally been those two districts that have been represented, and I think that's really important for all of you to hear their viewpoints on that, but it either could leave them on, take them off without any other staff person sitting on that committee, or perhaps having someone, CAO or designee, sit on that committee in lieu of them. Under item 3, the Housing Loan Review Committee, the thought was to go ahead and eliminate the board representation on that committee because it already had a pretty good membership, rounded membership on there. If you wanted to do that, we'd need to change the resolution that supports that committee, and that was attached just for your information. It's just there to remind you if we're going to change it, that's one where we'd have to change the resolution that supports that. Item 4, the Tuolumne County Narcotics Team, or TNT Committee, and that committee really had its roots in federal funding, which is all but dried up, and that committee, again, has not met in some time. The sheriff runs the narcotics activities and does hold meetings and coordinates through his team members. But with the elimination of those federal funds in particular, the real genesis for that committee has really been pulled away. Item 5, Tuolumne County Indian Gaming Local Community Benefit Committee. Looking to see if Daniel was still here, but Daniel's been involved with that for some time, but there really hasn't been any funding that's gone to that committee in years, and we're just going through a process every year right now where we just report to the state that we have no money and therefore haven't allocated any. So again, the impetus of that committee is basically gone. If you were to eliminate that, and if funding did come back someday, we could always restart that committee, but right now there's really no funding to meet and discuss over. We already talked about Emergency Medical Care Committee, item 6. Under 7, the Law Library Board of Trustees, the thought was looking into eliminating the board representation on that committee that meets very rarely, and designate county counsel to attend in lieu of the board chair. So that's a recommendation, and Ms. Carrillo's looked into that, and that is permissible under the related law. Item 8 is yes partnership, and if your board wanted to, could just simply eliminate the board representation. That's one you have a choice whether you want to or not want to participate in directly, and could just go ahead and designate a staff individual to attend in your place. Item 9, the Tuolumne Mariposa County Resource Advisory Committee, we know it as RAC. We haven't had funding allocated to us for secure rural schools, and therefore to talk about RAC funding in 2 years. There's discussion, as there's been in the last 2 years, that perhaps something could happen at the federal level. The thought being that until there is federal funds, that could be removed. If federal funds are approved, we could simply add it back, similar to the narcotics task force type thing and the Indian gaming issue. And then lastly is 10, Central Sierra Resource Conservation and Development, the RCND. We would eliminate that as we've discovered the council no longer exists. So we kind of asked that in the past, what do these people do, and now they don't even exist. So those were the areas that the chair and vice chair identified. Staff did some homework, and these are the recommendations. So Madam Chair, however you want to go through this, if you want to go one by one.
Yeah, so I've made a couple of notes, but I'd like to get some consensus from the other supervisors. On some of these I think are pretty self-explanatory, but certainly item 2 and item 8, I think, from my perspective, are the two that will have the most conversation. But do the supervisors want to talk about any of the others? Yes.
I can comment on both of those since I've been on both of them.
Okay, first let me make sure that, do we want to talk about any of the others other than 2 and 8 at this time?
I want a 6 also.
6, okay.
Okay.
All right.
So on 2, I'm okay with that. I would like, personally, since one of those airports is in my district, and this is an administrative thing, to continue to be advised of the meeting. So if I need, and the agenda. So if there's something that I would like to attend the meeting as an observer, I can. And I am concerned on that airport advisory committee that I don't necessarily, I don't think it would be as useful to have the CAO representation on there be the individual that the airport director of the airports is reporting to. I'd rather have somebody, understanding that they're all come together at the top, but I'd rather have somebody that's got a kind of an independent look on it, even though it's all out of your office. But I just think that would, one, make him more comfortable in his presentations, and 2, you might get a bright idea that comes in every now and then too. On number 9, I would, or I'm sorry, number 8, on the S partnership, I was an advocate for doing away with our representation on there. Initially, I've rethought that a little bit. We don't contribute a whole lot to it, other than the fact that the board is interested in their issues, and I think that that has value. I think what would be useful is to have an alternate to that is a staff member, and that way, if we have conflicts, in de facto, when I had a conflict, the S partnership usually lost because I wasn't contributing to that, and I was contributing to the other one. But I think it's useful if we're not doing anything else, for us to stick our head in the door and show an interest in their programs. It's a very important. It's all about the youth of our county, and it's really important. So maybe we look at how we might do that.
Supervisor Gray.
Okay, address the airport advisory first. I've sat on that for a long time, and I believe that there was a period of time where we're going through a lot of controversy and trying to resolve some issues that have been resolved, and I feel that if we have a good strong oversight there from staff, we'd probably be okay. But I'm interested in what the members of those committees think about the Board of Supervisors being there. Because sometimes I get the feeling that we don't get as open a dialogue going with supervisors there that we would do without them. I'm not saying that we try to stifle it, but sometimes I think that they look more towards the board for the answer than them coming up with the answer themselves. But that's just my general feeling about that particular committee. The emergency medical care committee, I sat on that. I find that, for me, very informative. It's interesting to know what is going on in the county. So I think my participation, I think, has been rewarding to me. Now, whether I've helped the committee out or not, I'm not sure. But with all these committees, what I think it's important is that all the board gets the agendas, and all the board gets the committee minutes, so that we can take it upon ourselves if we're interested in something to follow what's going on. That doesn't always happen. Upon request, obviously we can get it, but if there's a committee out there functioning, I think the whole board should know what's happening at that committee level.
So for clarification on the Emergency Medical Care Committee, I just want to read that because it says a Board of Supervisors shall serve as an ex officio member of the committee with voting privileges. However, this position shall not count for or against the establishment of a quorum. And so are you okay with that language, or because I think that was the...
I think there's been a couple times where they wouldn't have had a meeting if I hadn't showed up.
All right.
So that's the...
Because,
because of emergency things happening.
So, Mr. Pedro, maybe we need to relook at that, since really they have, that is, I think, the only piece was, in question was the quorum.
Okay, we could look at that before we bring it back.
Supervisor Royce?
Yeah, I'm generally fine with what's been proposed in the comments that have been made. The only other thing I wanted to consider was I've gotten complaints over time having to do with the HPRC and some of their just composition and structure. I know that there's been some difficulties there. And by no means am I proposing we should get rid of it, but retooling it, maybe revising it. I don't have a specific proposal, but I would like to maybe talk with staff on the side, and I'm sure maybe David might have some input, and Craig, and bring something back just to make it a little smoother, work a little better.
On that one, we can certainly do that. I think that's going to take a little bit more time.
I
So
agree.
maybe leave it alone for this rendition, but look at it separately.
That's fine. Yeah. It's kind of separate from Board of Supervisors, so
Right.
it's kind of...
Supervisor Hamfeld, did you have any comments? So I'm just going to make a general observation. Yeah, this is one of those pieces that's really difficult because we have a tremendous number of these committees that we sit on, and it comes up in our board retreats. How do we become more efficient? And when we were going through this, there weren't very many places that we felt that we could change the composition on. And Supervisor Rotifer, you mentioned the YES partnership, and I've had problems. I've sat on that one also. And much like you, when I've had conflicts, unfortunately, I have, been the one that I have unfortunately not attended. But part of my reasoning has been because we have so many other county staff members there from other departments. And so I've always done a roundabout and kind of cut back up to them to hear what, if there were any emerging issues. And again, a lot of those efforts are really driven by efforts within the school system, which again are very important. I'm not minimizing at all. And I know this board is in supportive of those efforts, but my direct, other than being able to share an occasional opinion, my direct influence is more minimal on that committee than a number of the others that we have. But I just want to say that it really, our participation on these committees is so important. And Supervisor Hamfeld and I had a real challenge in looking at them. And as you can see, other than committees that really just are not active, we didn't make very many changes.
Yeah, I wanted to point out that there's 10 committees here that are impacted, and other than one, the workload for me is not going to change if we eliminate all of them, because most of these are committees that we weren't participating in anyway because the committees weren't meeting. Nice try.
but there's an administrative problem that we're eliminating as well. And that's important. You know, with the crunch in terms of demand on people's time, not just hours, but staff time, it's important we constantly streamline and make the effort meaningful. And that's, I mean, it was a struggle looking at these things. And in fact, the airport one, for instance, I'm sitting here, I was arguing with myself with it. I said, look, that's got to be the call of District 4 and 5.
That's
But
correct.
I do think John made a very cogent point. While we serve to move the agenda along very efficiently, or more efficiently, let's put it that way. Maybe very isn't the right word. But while we serve to move the agenda along on that committee a little bit better, I'm not sure that we don't detract from some of the dialogue in there. And so for that reason, again, with a caveat that I'd like to know what's going on so that if there's something that I think it's of value for me to attend, that I can do that. But I think that's one that would actually maybe benefit from us not being there in a way.
And I think that if the committee would like us to attend, that would be always an option that would be out there for some reason.
So at this time, I'd like to hear from the public. Is there any public comment?
Yes, there is. I think you need to impact more than 10 committees. My concern is the Yes Partnership has a lot of members, but whenever I've been there, the attendance has been very poor. So if people are going to commit to being on the Yes Partnership, then they need to show up. So if those are your county partners, then their butt should be in the chair. And I've been concerned at the administrative time and effort and money and paper and whatever that's being devoted to the meetings that get canceled month after month after month after month after month. Some committees, I think the airport advisory met, once this year? Or did they meet more?
We met yesterday.
Oh, okay. Because Dick Pland is on that, right?
No. Airport?
Oh, he's Ag Advisory. Okay, sorry. Yeah, but it's like they only meet once a year, or they meet once every 2 years, but they're set up as if they're meeting monthly, and then downstairs or on the website in the agenda center, there's 8 bazillion cancellations. So I think maybe you should look at whether or not these meetings need to be monthly. Like, I think there should be a solid waste meeting every month, because I think we have issues to talk about. So I think this year they actually met 3 times. But normally it's only once or twice, and you just want to talk about fees, and I want to talk about other things. So I don't know if people need to spend their time canceling, LAFCO every month, and solid waste every month, and the airport advisory every month, and the housing policy every month, et cetera, et cetera.
There's an easier way to fix that.
Just make them like...
Change the schedule to meet quarterly or biannually or whatever is necessary.
Yes, I
Just
would
to
do.
review.
I think you should look at some of those and how many...
That's easier than, because we
Either-
can't really eliminate those ones.
No, I'm not saying eliminate them, but change your schedule so that everybody's not wasting their time. Like, are they meeting, are they not meeting? Where am I going to find the agenda?
So
How do
that-
I find out?
Point taken on the scheduling, and we'll bring it back and have a conversation with the full board. Anything else, Carol?
And then, yes,
Point taken.
you definitely need to look at your Historic Preservation Commission meeting, because they can't get anything done. And I'm tired of seeing the same stuff on the agenda for 6, 7 meetings and no decision getting made. So seriously look at that. And then also, this is the 21st century, and I'm sorry, but I don't think you should be allowed to be on any of the county committees if you do not have email access. And Mr. Pedro told me one time that he had to personally get in his car and drive over to someone's house and deliver an agenda packet. And I am not paying my tax dollars for him to do that. So if you want to be on a county committee, then by God, you better have email access.
I do Windows too. Sherry's looking at me.
I wasn't the recipient of that email package.
No, that was someone else. So, Madam Chair, what I'm hearing then is that the recommendations made by the chair and vice chair were fine with these changes. That with regard to Airport Advisory Committee, well, I think it's still put it CAO and designee. The emphasis would be on sending the designee, but I'm there in case the designee is not available. Yes, partnership is keep the board member on there, but have an alternate, a staff alternate. So there's some flexibility, there. And then on the ECC, we're not going to play with that other than we're going to look at the quorum rule. And I can't pull that one up in my archives as to why that is, because it is fairly odd. It makes me wonder if there's some kind of a rule related to that.
But Supervisor Gray is a volunteer for that committee for life.
Volunteer for life?
Yes.
Okay.
You might find it interesting.
I was going to ask the question. We could, Supervisor Gray mentioned all board members. Let me make sure I got it. What you were saying, all board members get all agendas and all minutes, or just specific committees? Because that could inundate you all with a lot of paper.
I think that on the setting committees, I believe that Randy might be interested in what's happening at the Solid Waste Committee.
I think we get them.
I think we get them also.
I mean, I think most of the time we get most of it.
Yes.
We get them.
I believe we do also.
We have been getting it for a long time.
Alicia CC's all of us.
All of us, yes.
On all of that.
Because I know I've seen that with.
Sometimes 2 or 3 times.
It's a matter of a push of a button, isn't it?
Yeah.
Comes in, pushes the button.
No, I do see that.
And if you don't receive them and you would like them, then I will contact the minute taker and have them forward them to me. I could follow up with anything that you're not getting that you think.
I do want to follow up with a point, though, that was made by a member of the public. And I think that we should be have an agenda item on these different committees about the frequency of when they meet. And it might be appropriate to change that to every other month or quarterly. But again, it's up to those committees, I think, to determine how often they need to meet.
Yeah, and to the extent that we have control over those, let's kind of do something interesting so that they don't all show up in March and nothing happens in January and February. Let's try and spread those out.
Yeah.
If it's every other month or every quarterly or whatever it is, but try and set them up so that they don't all hit us at once. And that will break down some of the conflicts that cause us to not attend some of these things. I've got 2 conflicts right now that I can't resolve between TCVC and the Behavioral Health Advisory Committee. TCVC fortunately only meets every other month or every quarter, I can't remember. So it doesn't impact it every time, but we need to try and resolve some of those.
Supervisor Hanfeld?
Yeah, I'm very concerned about the comment from the public about the HPRC. Anything on the agenda for months and months and months is inefficient, inappropriate, it's a waste of staff time, and that's exactly the kinds of stuff that we would like to eliminate. So I think we need to take a close look at what they're doing, what their work plan is, and what their accomplishments are, and review their process.
I'd like to see a policy, a county policy, that projects go to the HPRC once. They get to take their shot. The staff determines what they want to do with those comments, and then it comes to the board. They're an advisory committee. They are not a decision-making body anymore.
I agree.
And so I think they get one shot, and then it comes up here and we make the decision.
If you go back to our meetings when we were eliminating planning commissions, that's exactly what we put in there at that time. They were supposed to only get one shot, and then they can make a recommendation, and it moves ahead. So I don't know how this evolved to where they requested that they're coming back all the time, but I'm pretty sure if you look at the policy, it's already set up that way, and it's just not being followed.
So we will review that language, and if we need to make any changes or corrections so that it does clearly articulate. I'm looking for consensus across the dais. All right.
Okay. Yeah. So I will take that as direction And we'll incorporate these changes in your handbook as it comes back. And we'll follow up on some of those other items separately, like the HBRC.
Right. All right. Will the clerk, let's see. Will you please read item 12? And then we'll take a break.
This is presentation on the user fee study process.
Ms. Peterson.
Good morning, Madam Chair, board members. I am here today just purely for an informational item for you. I am going to be presenting on the process that we use and will continue to use for our user fee evaluations. Just a little background information here. A user fee is a charge that is collected by the county to recover the cost of providing a service to a user. A service that is eligible for a fee to be collected is, well, there are two criteria. The service is extended to or must be extended to and directly benefit a specific individual or an organization. And either a specific section of statute allows for the establishment of a user fee for the service, or at minimum, there is no section of statute that exists that prohibits the establishment of a user fee for the service. Also, according to Government Code Section 54985, the county is able to charge in the amount reasonably necessary to recover the cost of providing any product or service or the cost of enforcing any regulation for which the fee or charge is levied. Each year, the county's user fees are adjusted, and I apologize for, in the memo, I said that they were adjusted by the CPI, the Consumer Price Index. According to our ordinance code, section 3.40.020, our fees are actually increased or decreased by the same percentage of increase or decrease granted to county employees, represented by recognized employee organizations. So, their COLAs or whatever kind of adjustment that your board may approve for employees or may be approved in their MOUs. So I apologize for that error, but nevertheless, it does show that there is some semi-automatic increase or decrease each year to our user fees. Having said all of that, here in 2017 or fiscal year 17-18, we are expecting to receive revenue of about $12.9 million from fees for services. In fiscal year 16-17, we received $11.7 or so million in revenue. So all of this is to say that we will be evaluating, or we will begin the process of evaluating all of our user fees for general fund departments. The goal is to really have, because of this semi-automatic, we'll say, annual adjustment that occurs to our user fees. Sometimes we're not always exactly on for charging how much it costs staff to actually perform the service, and therefore the fee that's collected to perform that service. So we just want to make sure that we are right in line with what that costs. And so we are going to do kind of an overall evaluation of all of our fees, again, for the general fund departments. The goal is that this would be completed by the end of March, so that we can determine what our revenue generation will look like potentially for fiscal year 2018-19 when we develop the budget. So if I could just, if you would indulge me just briefly here so that I can discuss the process for how we evaluate our user fees. It's a fairly simple process. It can be a little detail heavy, but it's fairly simple and easy to understand in my opinion. Let's see here. In preparing to conduct the actual calculations of user fees by departments. Departments outline every activity, employee, and amount of time involved at each phase of a particular service. And this is recorded on the service process summary form, which I did include an example of in your board packet there. And it's very simply laid out. You list the department, you list the service, you list every activity from start to finish for providing that service. And then employees conduct a time study in most cases. And so they will average the amount of time that it takes them to conduct every activity in the process for providing the service. When we say average, that means at least 3 times. They will calculate how long it takes them to provide the service, each activity in that service. Then when all of that time, every employee's time is determined and calculated, you move to the fee worksheet, which also is included in your board packet. That takes the amount of time that an employee spends providing the service. It also includes the supervision and support rates for the department, the services and supply rates for the department, and the A87 overhead costs for the department. And that is all calculated out by the amount of time the specific employee spends providing that service. So we're not saying we're charging the full overhead costs for that specific fee. It's calculated by just that small amount of time it takes to provide to complete that activity for the service. So that's all completed on the fee worksheet form. It's some pretty simple calculations, and that determines what fee we should be charging for the service. Like I said, in most cases, we can conduct a time study. Not always, though. So in those few instances where time studies just aren't possible, maybe because from now until March, the service is used so infrequently that they won't even have departments won't have the opportunity to calculate the amount of time it spends, or for various other reasons, it's possible that a time study isn't a possibility. And so then departments can survey other counties to determine their user fee comparisons. And then departments will propose a user fee that is reasonable, again, according to Government Code Section 54985, a reasonable cost to provide the service. I just want to mention to you that this process was discussed at the Finance Committee on October 31st, and your Finance Committee representatives also requested that as fees are being evaluated, that departments also evaluate the services that they are providing. And if it's found that a service can be provided, maybe shouldn't be provided by the local government, but could be provided by the public sector or private sector, for less of the cost, or for whatever reason it's maybe just not appropriate any longer for the local government to provide that service, then departments will also propose that those fees or those services rather, and their associated fees be eliminated. So having said all this, I just wanted to give you all the context for sort of how we develop our fees. And the general fund departments from now until the last meeting, your last meeting in March, will be coming to you. Your board has to approve any changes to the master fee ordinance, and those are changed through a public hearing. And so you will be starting next board meeting. There's a tentative schedule in there for when the departments will be coming to you for their proposed changes. That's tentative, so just be warned of that. But that's how that's going to work. So you will be seeing departments here starting next board meeting with their proposed fee changes. I just wanted to give you just the context for how that's developed, so that you know when they're coming with new numbers, either lower or higher, this is where it came from. So that's all I have.
Supervisor Gray.
You mentioned it once, but about comparisons to other counties. I think when we've done this in the past, it's important for the public and for everyone to know what we are charging, but also what it costs in other places. So I would hope that as we went through the structure that we did have a pretty good comparison of like jobs in other counties. We know that we don't pay as much as some other counties, so hopefully we can do it a little bit cheaper and charge the public less money. So
would you like to see comparisons maybe
Yes.
every time? Okay.
Can I comment? Just comment on that. We can do that. that can take some time too to just prepare that. I know the biggest areas of interest have been development. In the past.
let's do the big one, the development side.
Okay, and then just to mention again, when we're held to the standard and laws, we can only charge up for a full reasonable cost in Tuolumne County. So
No matter
in a
what
lot
it
of regards,
is
it doesn't
in
matter
places.
what Sally and Joe, next door neighbors, charge, but people are interested, particularly in the development arena, what those are, and then to separate, these are user fees, so this would be like your building permits and things like that, as opposed to mitigation fees, which are a whole other area that's handled in a separate manner.
I'd be fine with that.
I understand that there's a lot of interest because our constituents really deal with that. But I would say, like with our ag fees, I think our farmers and ranchers would be interested in knowing that comparison. So I think you have individuals where this would be, I think in most cases, good news to them, but it would be very valuable information.
And that has been the case most of the time, that our fees are pretty darn reasonable.
It's just an opportunity, I think, to talk about. I think this county is really fairly efficient when I have conversations with other counties, and it's an opportunity to say that again out loud in a fashion that has data to support it. Supervisor Rotifer.
Yeah, I agree. I would like to see a comparison across the board. And I know that's a little bit of time, maybe 3 phone calls, maybe more. But I think that's valuable. And if we're over, I'd kind of like to know what the justification for that is, okay? And the reason I want to know that isn't because I want to be a fee cop, okay? The reason I want to know that is so the public knows that. Okay, we hear all the time, hey, it costs more to do business in Tuolumne County than any of our neighboring counties. I'm tired of hearing that. I don't think it's necessarily true. If it is, then we need to be honest about why it is. But I think that's important. The other thing is while I agree, just from swallowing a drink out of a fire hose standpoint, that we can't do everybody at once, but I'm really not interested in piecemealing approval of changes to fee structure. I want to bring them all at once because the last thing I want to see is some kind of summary slide that says this is what we were charging in fees total before, this is what we're going to charge now, and this is the total impact to our revenue picture. And my understanding is that we may not charge more, as CAO Pedro just said, more than the cost of doing business. But we do have the option to charge less. And in some cases, especially in places where we're going to be charging more than our neighboring counties, we may want to make that choice. But we have to know what the total fiscal picture is and what the implications are to our revenue stream if we do make that choice, okay? Because basically what we're doing is, in those cases, giving up potential revenue to the county, which is going to impact our budget someplace. I mean, this is all general fund, and we know we have limitations on that. So those are the 3 things that I wanted to mention. One, I do want a comparison across all of them, and I want a roll-up at the end, and then we approve them all at one time.
Is it okay to take them and bring them in bite
Yeah,
sizes
bring them in bite-sized
review?
segments
'Cause
for
if you did them all
review.
at once, that'd be...
Yeah, and then we have a roll-up at the session at the end of it, and we go through, okay, this is line item by line item, just kind of like we do a budget. We're not going to go through and cherry pick every line item, but just so we can see what the roll-up is.
So if I could just get some clarification on that. So then are you asking for no action to be taken when departments come with their proposed changes or?
That's correct.
Okay.
Those
So
are information.
action wouldn't come until
Action
March
would come in
20th.
March.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, or whenever we get to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Supervisor Royce.
Yeah, just some general comments. First thing, as far as fees go, they get a bad rap because you look at what the state does. They use it as a workaround to implement taxes without the right processes and so forth. So the public, in cases, can be taken advantage of by fees. So with that being said, it's our duty as a board to represent our constituents and so forth. And it's very important that it's expressed that, you know, and I believe that we have this, but it's critical that we have the highest level of integrity while we do this, because we're serving the public. Public doesn't have a choice who their government is. You know, I guess they can choose their board, but there's no competition, and they're subject to, you know, the will of our staff and our board. So it's very important that is there. I think transparency is key to that, and I'm glad colleagues are asking for this kind of information, because it opens it up. And I also agree, I'm happy to hear the Finance Committee make comments about not only reviewing the fee, but also reviewing the processes and the services, because I think those things go hand in hand. Not only do we want to look at how much it's costing, but we want to look at the steps, and are we being as efficient and streamlined as possible. So that's a good opportunity. I just want to emphasize that and highlight that one more time. And just thank you.
Supervisor Hanfield.
One, I too want to see the comparisons, and Supervisor Royce, I'm not concerned about, because we have to justify our fees that the state doesn't necessarily have to do. We're not going to charge the public any more than the cost, largely. But the process side is important to me, because the demand for county services is increasing, I believe, certainly in a prospering economy and a growth situation, which I wish we were in. I hope we get back there. So we need to streamline the processes so the throughput is more efficient, so we better serve our community and hold the waiting time down on that. So that's really what we're after, is we're after maximizing the output, if you will, for the cost.
I do have one more idea, and it has to do with development and building. One thing, right now, most people in the building industry, development industry are pretty busy, and things they're on the upside. In some cases, when things were slower, let's say 5 years ago or something like that, time was more critical in processing permits, things like that. There's still, you know, always an impotence for, you know, getting from A to B as quickly as possible. But I guess my point is not only reviewing the fees, but maybe also looking at some alternative services to also complement those things. So if you have expedited reviews or things like that, I know sometimes people may be willing to pay more to get something done faster. Time and money are a trade-off, and I know if I'm building something, if I'm bidding, if they want it done faster, it's probably going to cost more, because I'm going to have to throw more resources at it to get it done in a smaller window. Sometimes people are willing to pay that because they have a need for a quick completion. So just some more direction for staff. I think that's something, if you give people a choice and you say we can do it really cheap, but it's going to take longer, and we're, you know, I think there's a way to justify that and
All right.
accommodate people.
Any other board comments? Are there any public comments?
Sorry, I feel like I'm the only one here today. I just wonder why with this user thing, why you want to see the whole thing as a board. Why isn't this going to your finance committee first, where they could do the preliminary user fee study?
Well, my point was, I don't want to make decisions piecemeal. They all kind of relate to each other. I'm assuming that this will be worked through the Finance Committee. But I think before we vote on something that's going to set some fee structure in place in one department, I'd kind of like to know, because there's going to be some decisions to be made, and I don't think we want to make them piecemeal, because that's going to foreclose options down the road on what we do in some other departments.
Hang on. I'll bring it back for our full conversation in just a second.
Hello, Dave Titchenell. Thanks for the opportunity. Liz, I just wanted to know, one thing that was in the documents that
Dave,
really...
I need talk
Okay.
to, just address
one
the
thing
board
that-
and then
that-
we'll, thank you.
that really got my interest was looking at the cost effectiveness of providing services, and at some point, private sector may be able to deliver those services better. I'd like a little bit more detail on how that is going to be looked at. You know, she went through how we do come up with the formulas for charging services, but how do we look at whether we eliminate the county doing a service and turn it over to a private sector?
So, Mr. Pedro.
Yeah, we know from other experiences, we're prohibited from contracting, or from contracting out. But if there's already that service available in the private sector, that's something you may want to consider discontinuing if it's already available through other means.
And so this is really something that we rely on our department heads for, and I have already begun discussions with a lot of our departments on this and have laid that out clearly, and we have very sharp department heads who have already been thinking, oh, well, so-and-so provides the service, and so maybe, so we will rely on our department heads for that.
And that would have been my assumption, that we would be looking to the area experts to give us some direction on that. Supervisor Royce.
Yeah, just thinking about the process, I would think if you're going to bring back individual items and vet them in more detail, I think that is more appropriate for the Finance Committee. That way, in this forum, you don't really have the ability to dig in and kind of, be as fluid. I think if they worked through that venue for the individual items and then brought back a whole package, I like the idea of seeing them all, but I think doing that background work first in the committee is the easiest way to do it, the best way. Yeah. That makes sense?
Yes.
To you? Good.
And what I might suggest is, in some of these departments, we all have different expertises on this board. Supervisor Hamfeld and Supervisor Rotifer, you're on the Finance Committee, correct? That we wouldn't want to have a Brown Act violation, but there are a couple of these I would be interested in looking at some of the preliminary information on. Well,
the Finance Committee is just going to be a
exactly.
recommendation. We're going to have it all anyway.
And then if we want further detail, we can follow up with that detail. All right, I'm fine with that.
And there's no problem with the staff engaging individual supervisors on any board item, so.
Right, all right, I'm fine with that. Do we have clear enough direction?
Yeah, I
So
think
that
so.
will change the schedule that we
Exactly,
have here.
right,
and-
but that's okay.
And that's fine, yeah. All right. Any other comments? All right, this was there was no action on this item, so at this time, what I'd like to do is take a 10-minute break, and then we will come back and do reports. We are going to reconvene the Board of Supervisors meeting. Will the clerk please read item 13?
Reports.
All right. And I am going to start to my right, Mr. Pedro. Supervisor Hanfeld.
Okay, Madam Chair, along with some of the other supervisors, last week we attended the CSAC annual meeting and participated in all the committee meetings. Interesting conference, some interesting speakers, and always useful networking. We'll see what comes out of that in the long term. Some new policy work, and we need to work on with CSAC to improve our rural county influence. But in addition to that, I spent some one-on-one time with our new forest supervisor. I'm very encouraged by that meeting, and I'm looking forward to working with him. We continue to work on the master stewardship agreement. Hopefully, we can get that thing moving so that we're ready to move forward in the spring and start doing some additional work under grant, under some grant funding, and then making it perpetuating the money back into the system. So I'm optimistic about that, and you'll be hearing from us soon.
Supervisor Gray.
Yes, I was in Sacramento also last week, and just want to report that marijuana is alive and well on all 58 counties, and it's a major issue, and there does not seem to be one consistent way that any county is going about the business of creating the rules and regulations. So I look forward to the perfect one coming from Tuolumne County.
Supervisor Royce. Supervisor Rutherford.
Yeah, just 2 items to report. I made and ate turkey, and I also went to CSAC, and I did a little stirring the pot on rural participation in CSAC, and so hopefully things will improve. I'm done.
Ms. Carrillo. Ms. Jamar.
I actually also did attend CSAC CCBSA last week. Thank you.
All right, and real briefly, I want to thank Supervisor Hanfield for filling in for me as the alternate at CSAC. While I appreciate representing us on that board, I had a previous commitment that took me to Reno, Nevada I did a presentation to the Public Lands Council, and what was interesting is Ms. Karen Budd Fallon, who will be the new chief of the Bureau of Land Management, was also there, and we had an opportunity to have lunch together and had some very interesting conversations. And so we are anxiously awaiting while the Senate has gotten approvals done for the Secretary of Ag and Secretary of Interior. Some of those lower positions have been very slow in coming, and her comment to the entire audience was that it is imminent, and so we are anxiously awaiting that actually occurring. So with that will conclude reports, and will the clerk please read our closed session items?
This is a closed session, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, authority government code section 5495756 and its 3 cases.
Do we anticipate reporting out? No. All right. We will adjourn to closed session and be back for our 11:30 appointments. All right, we are going to reconvene our Board of Supervisors meeting. I have nothing to report out from our closed session item. Would the clerk please read our first 11:30 appointment?
This is a presentation of certificates of appreciation for Duke York and Dorothea Carnegie by the Highway 108 and Yosemite Foothill Fire Safe Council.
And very good. I'd like to invite Jerry and Rick to come up to the podium, please.
Good morning, Madam President and fellow board members, Mr. Pedro, Sarah. I'm sorry, I forgot your last name. And my name is Jerry Tannhauser from the Highway 108 Fire Safe Council. And with me, my co-presenter is Rick Wybra from the Yosemite Foothills Fire Safe Council. We are both here this morning to issue a certificate of appreciation to 2 county employees who have gone out of their way to assist both fire safe councils in mapping and GIS services. So the first person I'd like to thank publicly this morning is Duke York. Please come forward. On behalf of the Highway 108 Fire Safe Council and the Yosemite Foothills Fire Safe Council, we want to thank you for all of your services for many, many years. And here's your certificate.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Hi there, Rick Wyber, Yosemite Foothills Fire Safe Council. I just wanted to add that when we sit down every year and write our grant proposals, there's two very important pieces of information that are required. One is our narrative as to what we're going to do and why we want to do it. And secondly, they want to know where we're going to do it. And without these maps and information that both Duke and Dorothea have provided, it's just outstanding work. It goes a long way, and we certainly think that it helps secure the grants that we are awarded every year. So, again, this certificate is for Dorothea. Please come up. And again, we want to thank both of them for all that they've done for us and continued down the road. There you go. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm going to go to public comment in just a second, but I think the board probably would like to make a few comments also. So I'm glad the four of you are staying there and didn't try and walk off, because my comments are really directed to both the 108 Fire Safe Council and the Yosemite Fire Safe Council. It's the collaboration that we do across the spectrum, and the services that your organizations, working in conjunction with county departments, CAL FIRE, all of the different funding mechanisms, the community safety that you provide our citizens. And I know you've heard us say up here many times, when we look at the rim fire or some of the other starts that we've had in the county, we can point directly to the work that is done by our fire safe councils as what has allowed the agencies to get in there and stop those fires and protect property and people. And I appreciate the fact that you're reaching out because it is a collaborative effort, and there are so many partners on this, and so it's wonderful to see this recognition. But really, I want to extend that recognition to both of the fire safe councils and all of the partners that make it successful, because it truly is so important for our county. Supervisor Hanfield, I'll start down here.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that, and that is that the public, I don't think, recognizes what the fire safe councils do. And you're all volunteers, and I know that, and the immense amount of work that you guys put in. And to be specific, Madam Chair, the Oak Fire, which started the day before the Butte Fire, could easily have been a duplicate. The whole Stanislaus River Canyon could have gone, but the work that the Fire Safe Council did up there near Old Oak Ranch and Sierra Outdoor School is the key to why that fire didn't get away from us. And you continue to do work, and I've commented a number of times, if you get a request from the Fire Safe Council to come in and do work on your property, tell them yes. Absolutely tell them yes. Do not even hesitate, because they're doing it in the best interest, your best interest and the best interest of the county. I want to thank you for that, and we appreciate the partnership that we have as a county with you guys, and our team. We thank you for recognizing them. They do a lot of work, and they're often forgotten too. And I know you want to do this publicly, Jerry, because you and I talked about it. I thank you for doing that.
So I've heard a number of times from Rick how helpful county staff has been in developing the GIS maps and the things that they need to work under. And I think that what I tell Rick, I says that's what they do. They do a tremendous job for the people of this county, and I think the collaboration and everybody working together is just a fantastic thing. So I don't think you're going to get any less from them. I think you're probably going to get more.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, guys.
Supervisor Royce or Rutherford?
Just a quick one. Everything that's been said is right on point. You guys are amazing contributors to our county and our community. It's so important what you guys do. And to our staff, volunteers, all of you, thank you so much, genuinely, for what you do for our county. It really is vital to our safety and our quality of life in Baldwin County. So it's nice to have this opportunity to recognize you guys.
I think one of the things that distinguishes Tuolumne County from many of the other counties that I work with in various associations is the partnership that our community has, and I think that's very, very important. So I congratulate our staff for being good partners. Obviously, the fire safe councils need our help. We need their help. And so you two, thank you very much for everything that you've done. And I also want to echo my colleagues' thanks to the fire safe councils themselves, and thank you for recognizing our staff and their work, but also thank you for the volunteer work that you all do and your people do. You know, the best thing that can happen in Tuolumne County is that people don't realize the full effect of what you do, okay? And that is that a fire doesn't happen, okay? Or when it does happen, CAL FIRE or whoever is able to jump on it and put it out, as Supervisor Hanvelt noted the instance that we had last year. It's those types of efforts that prevent bad things from happening that are so very, very important. Otherwise, we're spending a lot of resources trying to deal with the bad thing that did happen. So, again, thank you, Fire Safe Councils, and thank you, staff. I know that you two represent a broader effort on our staff, and let's keep working as a good team in Tuolumne County. Thank you.
Is there any public comment?
Madam Chair, members of the board, if you would permit me, I will turn around and face my staff member to make sure that she can hear me. Two things I want to try to accomplish. My name is David Gonzalez for the Public's Information. I'm the Community Resource Agency Director, and these two employees, both Duke and Dorothea, are my staff members, and I am extremely proud of having two of them be recognized today. This county does that extremely well. I am very proud to be part of that family, and I thank you and the Fire Safe Council for doing just that. And I believe, Madam Chair, you mentioned that they are part of a team. That is absolutely correct. Larry Bile is also here, and I think Madeline and Michael are also part of our GIS team, but it takes a larger group of people to actually pull this off. It's not just my department, but many parts of our department that also contribute to this. And I want to thank all of them as well as recognizing their extra efforts for this particular thing. And so I'm also going to take advantage of the moment, as I am not shy about doing. I think you know that. Dorothea will be retiring this year, and I'll never get her back here any other way. So I'm going to take advantage of that, and I slightly apologize. So I'm going to say a few things very briefly about Dorothea. Out of respect for her, I will be brief. But having been here since January, I've got the privilege of getting to know Dorothea and our GIS group. And Dorothea came to our group in 2003 and just became a part of a very, very small group of people that are instrumental. And as you started to say, the board, is these groups are very unrecognized for the amount of work that they do. And it is my goal over the next few years just to make sure we understand the power of GIS and that it gets expanded, because this type of action that's being handled by the Fire Safe Council, there's many other uses for our tools that we have. So during Dorothea's time here, she's been able to assist with the growth and success of the GIS program. She's worked with the Assessors Department, Public Works, and is now presently in our GIS department, which she will be retiring and I will miss you personally. One thing that's noted about Dorothea is she's extremely detail-oriented, to the point where she is not done until Dorothea says she's done. And that is something that's truly commendable. In this type of work, that is critical. So I thank her for her detailed work. She specializes in just that, in the county facets of the reporting for safety, transportation, land use planning, tree mortality, the Fire Safe Council, and is dedicated a large portion of her time to that. Again, her wonderful personality, if you get to know her, you'll get to understand that, and I definitely will miss that on the floor that I get to work on. So the technology has changed since Dorothea has been here, and she's followed that and excelled with that, and I commend her, because that is no small task to keep up with just the changes in that one software program. Again, she's a valuable person to my department, but also the entire county. We will do our best to go on without her, and she deserves the time to be with her family and friends and enjoy her retirement. I want to thank you for your dedication to both my department, but the entire county. So thank you. And I apologize a little bit. Thank you.
He takes advantage of the mic, so I'm going to do the same.
You earned it, Duke. We'll give you a little mic time.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
That's enough.
Supervisor Rotifer referred to the broader effort that goes in from staff, and I wanted to acknowledge that. I couldn't do it without my engineering staff to back me up. And when either Jerry or Rick would come to us with a project, we'd get a definition of it, and we got pretty good on the drill of what they needed for these grants. And quite often when they'd approach us, I'd say, well, when do you need it? Well, could we get it tomorrow? You know, or the day after that. And Dorothea and I would step into this thing, put it together, get the list of the owners, and quite often during the course of the project itself, there'd be coordination with our road crews, would be helping out. There'd be coordination with the county surveyor's office to research right-of-ways. And then there is the collaboration that goes on with the broader GIS program, which is we would put together these various projects, and when a mapping project would come up and we needed to have all of these projects shown, we had them. We could put them all on these exhibit maps. A lot of the coordination we did with the tree mortality groups, we put all of that information on the maps. Our CDF, CAL FIRE people would say, can we get a copy of that map? Or the volunteer fire departments in Cedar Ridge and everywhere. Everybody loved the maps put out by Dorothea and our local GIS folks. So it is a collaborative effort, and it definitely benefits the entire community. Thank you.
Thank you, Duke.
I just wanted to thank Dorothea as well as the GIS staff. They've always been very helpful with our application process for a lot of grants, filtering a lot of data that's stored in GIS, and they have been a success to our team at receiving those grants. So I just want to thank them.
Thank you, Tanya. And it truly is a team effort. So thank you, everyone. All right. Will the clerk please read our second 11:30 appointment?
This is a presentation on the Mother Lode Fairgrounds.
Well, Madam Chair,
I believe
I think it's
some,
Missy dodging back there.
Right. I believe we have some Fair Board members that are going to join us.
And it's just they're coming up. We were contacted about a unique thing that the Fair Board would like to do as they look at the 2018 fair. I'll let Missy speak to it, but I've already pledged the county staff support in their efforts.
Thank you very much, and good morning. I'm Missy Marino. I'm the president of the Motherlode Fair Board. And after the 2017 fair, we asked the public for comment on what we could do to make our fair better. And we received a lot of good comments, cooling stations, better signs, how to get places, some minor things. But then we also had a wonderful public comment where private citizen Rodifer came and talked to us about how come we're not highlighting Tuolumne County more. And so from that, our discussion kept going, and we talked about doing the towns of Tuolumne County. So what we would like to do this year at our fair is in our Muir building that in the past it's always been commercial vendors. There still will be commercial vendors in there, but we're going to have 10 by 10 booths for every town in the county that wants to participate, where they can highlight their town, what it is that maybe they want to talk about its origins or the industries that they have had in the past, in the present, where they're going, where they want to be going. It can be a complete, just a display. They could have handouts if they want. We just want to give them the space to do this, to highlight every town in Tuolumne County, because we have visitors that come to our fair. It's not just Tuolumne County folks that are there. So that would give them a chance to see what else there is within the county, not just Sonora, which is wonderful to visit, but there's quite a bit to visit in Tuolumne County. We would also like a 10 by 10 booth that's an overview of the county itself, much like they do up at the state fair. So that's why I came here, and Craig has pledged support, as he said, because we're looking for contacts for various organizations or people in these small towns that could start working on a booth for our 2018 fair. The dates this year were a little bit earlier than we have been in the past. The dates of the fair are July 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. We have added a day, so we've gone back to having a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday fair. But on Thursday and Friday, we'll start later. It'll be 5 in the afternoon, and then on Saturday and Sunday, it'll start at 3. The theme for this year's fair is a fair to remember. Various people use that in their displays. Whether or not the towns will be able to use that will remain to be seen, but this is the project we'd like to get going on. I think it's very worthwhile. Other things that we do plan to have is not inside the building, but outside is displays possibly of cattle ranching, the railroads, and the lumber industry. So we really do want to showcase Tuolumne County. We thought that was a wonderful suggestion, and so that's why I'm here. We wanted to let you know about it.
So really appreciate the update, and I see there'll be a few board questions. I've got a couple real quickly, Missy. First of all, if somebody is listening and wants to contact, is there an individual will be leading this effort, or can you provide some contact information?
Right. At this point, they can just call the Motherlode Fairgrounds office and give Kathy or actually we have a couple of new folks in the office as well. They can leave their information. Mickey Rucker, who is right here, she's going to actually be heading up the project, so eventually everything's going to get funneled to her. But call the fairgrounds, 532-7428.
All right. And the other thing, you mentioned the fair dates, but I would assume that most of these would have an entry date that would have to be done before the fair date?
Yes, and it will be in June, and I do not have that date yet because we have not finished our premium book.
Okay. And then lastly, I know for myself, but we have chamber representation out here, and so I'm hoping there will be a lot of partnerships between the Visitors Bureau and the different chambers of commerce. And then I know we will be reaching out to some of the other organizations that are involved with some of the heritage industries that you spoke about. So I'll
Thank
go
you.
to Supervisor Gray.
Yeah, as far as outreach in the Groveville Big Oak Flat area, we have the Yosemite Highway 120 Chamber and also the Southern Tuolumne County Historical Society. So when you have your package together, if you would like me to present that to them, I would be happy to do so, or you can call them yourselves.
That would be wonderful. We really would love it if you could reach out to different people to make sure they know about it.
Okay.
Any other board comment?
Yeah, one over here.
Hi.
Listening to you, I already texted the Visitors Bureau and told them to get in contact with you and help you do this.
Thank you.
So anyway, thank you for doing what you're doing.
Thank you very much.
Well, I think it sounds like a wonderful project, and I'm going to really look forward to that. So at this time, I'd like to ask if there's any public comment. All right.
Do I have to come up?
Please.
I'm Amelia Harrison, and I'm the Executive Director of the Tuolumne County Chamber of Commerce, and I want to let Missy and Mickey and the Fairgrounds and the Board of Supervisors know that the Tuolumne County Chamber of Commerce is on board with this. I would love to see the Visitors Bureau and the Tuolumne County Chamber of Commerce work together with a booth and get something, and then be able to have all the chambers represent their areas and get those out there as well. So as a board member of the Tuolumne County Visitors Bureau, I will make sure that that happens. So thanks.
Thank you, Amelia. Any other public comment? Thank you very much, ladies. We appreciate the update and wonderful
Thanks for coming.
presentation. Thank you. So at this time, we will stand adjourned until our 1:30 appointment. Recessed. Okay, it is 1:30, and we are going to reconvene the Board of Supervisors meeting. Will the clerk please read our 1:30 appointment?
This is presentation on the status of the State of California's 2016 Community Development Block Grant National Disaster Resiliency Competition Project.
And we have all been anxiously awaiting this report.
Great.
So, Ms. Frank.
Thank you, Supervisor Brennan. Mo Frank, County Administrator's Office, and before me today with me is Sue Naramore from Housing and Community Development, Elliot, I'm going to mess it up, Vanderkolk from Sierra Nevada Conservancy, and Maria Bench from U.S. Forest Service. So we're missing a few of our core team members, but you have the majority of us that are hard at work, working on the project.
It's the A team.
It's the A team. There you go. Woohoo! We'll have to tell the others they missed out. As your board is aware, the State of California, along with U.S. Forest Service and the county, applied for the National Disaster Resiliency Competition in 2016. California had applied for $117 million, and we were awarded a little over $70 million. The project that we came up with was the Community and Watershed Resiliency Program. In that program, there were 3 pillars: forest and watershed health, biomass facility, wood product campus, and community resiliency center. In May, we were here, the core team was here before your board to give you an update of where we are, and at that time, Tuolumne County officially signed all the necessary paperwork to start on this phase 3. And at that time, we gave you a brief report of each of the 3 pillars. So we wanted to come back today and give you an update of what's happened and what's transpired since May. So with that, I'll turn it over to Sue.
Good afternoon, everyone. Is it on? Yeah.
We thank you for your time today. We're really excited to be back in the county to give you an update on where we are. The team has been incredibly busy since we last saw you. And I'm going to move over and move some slides. But oops, wrong way. Mo just went through. Rather than Mo just went through the basics of the program. That's what the other two slides were. But currently, since last May, you can see on this slide, we have been able to get all grantees under contract. We have, the county has procured the architect and technical assistance for administration. The programming document for the Community Resilience Center, acronym CRC, is also underway and will be completed shortly. For your review and approval. We have procured we'll be getting under contract in the next 60 days at the outside for the biomass utilization facility consultant in order to do the feasibility on the biomass ideas that we have. And we've just announced the award for that in the last few days, and we'll be working on that contract soon. On the Forest and Watershed Health pillar, we are completing the NEPA process in order to finalize our request for release of funds from HUD in order to be able to begin spending money and get shovels in the ground on the Forest and Watershed piece. We'll have in-depth reports on each of those pillars. This is just the overview, and each of the staff leads on the pillars will be giving you more detail on this. On the grant administration side, which is in some ways a pillar of its own, we've completed 6 trainings for all grantees since May. We've done CDBG, Community Development Block Grant Program Basics, National Disaster Resilience Competition Specifics, Record Keeping and File Structure, Monitor Requirements, Procurement. Procurement, as you've all heard, is a very hot topic where HUD is concerned these days, and Section 3 and women and owned minority businesses. So those 6 trainings have been provided to all grantees. And then from a direct assistance standpoint, we have worked also on procurement with some of the steps in terms of doing indirect cost proposal, independent cost estimate, RFP, RFQ compliance in the way NDR wants it done. Cost reasonable analysis. We're working with SNC on a indirect cost rate. The state departments can't include that stuff in their hourly, so we are having to do an indirect cost rate for them. And then the file structure list. We're trying to get some uniformity so that when monitoring comes through, all the files are fairly easy and straightforward to monitor, so that we're not having to have Mo and Terry go back for all kinds of extra stuff. So we're looking at uniformity there. On the whole, we feel like we are very much on target with where the projects are. We are excited to be getting the Buff feasibility study underway. We are very excited to be seeing the programming document for the CRC and really get a vision on what is happening and what it's looking like. So for the next steps for grant administration, the next piece is that HUD will be coming to visit for an NDR monitoring visit December 18th. We will have people from DC and Colorado here. We'll be doing an all-day meeting in HQ headquarters down in Sacramento. And all of the grantees will be coming in and doing presentations and talking with HUD. HUD has pillar-specific questions for us, and certainly timing and timeline questions. We are within the timeline that we submitted, so I don't foresee any difficulties there. And then in addition, the next round of grantee assistance will be working on duplication of benefit, which is a federal piece of this grant, and then detailed procurement checklists to make future procurements a little bit easier for everybody to do so that we're all on the same page. But on the whole, like I said, I think we are moving along in the direction and at the speed that we thought we were going to be moving, and we are very excited to be continuing to move forward. My conversations with HUD have been very positive, and they're very excited about the things that they're hearing from us. I expect the 18th to go quite well. Any questions?
Just one. I assume that the years on your slide, timeline slide, were calendar years, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah, the fiscal year for feds runs mid-year to mid-year, but we figured calendar was easier. Anything else? With that, then, I will turn it over to Maureen with the Community Resilience Center pillar.
Okay. Just wanted to give you an update, as I said in the opening, activities that have been going on since May. May was the official kickoff for the county in regards to the Community Resiliency Center. At that point in time, we really couldn't do much until we had the signed agreements. As you know, and as the public is not aware, the county is responsible for the design and construction and working with our community on the development of the Community Resiliency Center. The first thing we did is county staff worked with your board on creating an action plan and a timeline for this project. And then next we developed a system. It was very important, I know, for your board. What I've heard from you is to get as much input as we possibly could in the time frame we had and how we were going to go about doing that. And so at that time, your board approved a committee structure, if you will. So we developed an advisory team that would assist me on overall kinds of activities. They were a sounding board for me as a lead for this project, and just would come in and out of the project as needed to assist. The next group we had was community stakeholders. These were 7 people that were selected to represent the county on this committee to give their input into the project and help guide it along. We wanted someone that kind of an independent outside of county staff to look at things. The next group that we organized was the community operational stakeholders. And those were people who provided, representing agencies that provided services of various types in the community. We wanted to have their input into how this facility, if this facility or facilities were developed, how could they provide services or how they could be part of this building. Staff was also busy this past summer in sending out an RFQ and an RFP, as Sue had mentioned before. The RFQ was for architectural services. We had 12 people apply to our RFQ. We did interviews, and the advisory team narrowed it down to Lionakis, architects out of Sacramento. We've used Lionakis before. As you know, they're doing our jail project right now, and the state has hired them to do the courthouse project on the Law and Justice Center campus. For assistance on CDBG or NDRC DR activities, the county sent out an RFP for consulting services. At the close of that RFP process, we received 2 proposals, and the county has selected Cox Consultant to assist us with those activities. The first activities then that we started on with the architect is a programming document. What we wanted to do is to see what the needs of the community are, how the community wanted to use this center or centers, and get their ideas on how this facility should be designed. So what we did is, working with the architectural office, we had several meetings this summer. The first meeting we held was just the advisory team and the architects to kind of lay out the ground rules, to lay out how we were going to approach the community, making sure that we had a good community outreach program, and that we were getting information out to the public. The second meeting was the advisory team and the community stakeholders, and then the architects. And then so at that point, we were kind of drilling down a little bit more and starting our first conversations on what kinds of activities would you think would be in these facilities. The third meeting was then the community stakeholders, the operational stakeholders, and the architects. And from that, we started again building on what we've heard before and going from there, and started to talk about people that were looking at maybe providing services in these facilities and what would they want to see. From that, we took that information and we went out to the public, and we had 3 public meetings, one in Groveland, one in Tuolumne, and then a final one here in Sonora. And really all three, the first 2 meetings in the communities was basically to talk to the public again as, here's what we've heard from service providers and from stakeholders in the community. Does this match what you would like to see if we were to build a facility in your community? What kinds of things are you looking at? What kinds of things would you like to see? What should we consider? And start putting that programming document together. The final meeting in Sonora was basically a report out to the community, and it was well attended. I should say the Groveland meeting, we had over 75 people. In Tuolumne, we had a little over 35 people, and then in Sonora, I think we had another 32 or so. So I would say they were fairly well attended, and we got some good input from the community. The community was not shy in expressing what they would like to see. There are a lot of faults with this grant application, but one of the things I think has been interested in this, to me, in this process is being able to be asked as a community, what do you want to see in a center, instead of saying, here's a center and this is what it is. So it's nice that they got input. So the programming document is currently, it's currently being drafted by the architects right now. And basically what this document will include, as you see there, will be the various types of spaces, the number of those spaces, and the square footage of each of those spaces, both inside the facility and outside the facility. So staff on your board meeting on the 19th will go through that programming document with you and ask you to review it and look at it and give some direction to staff. The other thing that's important in that programming document includes cost. So based on what the architects saw in those space allocations and number of spaces, they were able to put a cost estimate to construct the facility. And so we've asked them to do, as you'll see on the 19th, several different programming documents, from this is what the community asked, no filters on it, to a modified program, to one then that fits within our budget. So if we were to do 2 centers. Also on the 19th, your board meeting, staff will be coming before you to consider the following items. As I just mentioned, you'll finalize the programming document for the CRC. You'll be giving staff direction on pursuing 1 or 2 community resiliency centers. You'll be approving property search criteria that will be utilized in evaluating property proposals that the county will receive. And then if your board is ready to proceed at this time, authorizing staff to send out an RFP for solicitation of potential sites for this project. So that's kind of what's coming up on the 19th.
So Mo, I had some questions back from some of the participants and about, is there latitude for the result, if there are 2 centers, for them to be different?
Absolutely. And that's what we heard from the programming document, and the architects and myself will talk a lot about that on the 19th. There were a lot of similarities between the 2 communities, general communities that we talked to, but there were some differences. As you can imagine, in Groveland, there was more of a need for more programs that were geared to more senior members of our community. And in Tuolumne, we heard more about needs for our younger community residents. So that was the biggest difference. As I said, similarities. Everyone wants a full-fledged community commercial kitchen. You know, we talked about restrooms and showers, enough parking spaces. So we'll go over those. But to answer your question,
variation that I really have heard articulated in the community. So.
Yeah, so they don't need to be cookie cutter, and you'll see that in the programming document. Even the sizes of the facilities can be different. How they're orientated, what's included in them. Those are all things that still need to be determined. Next steps. Your staff will continue to engage the community and talk to them about partnerships. That's extremely important in this project. It's not the county alone. We really want to foster and form partnerships between different groups in the community going forward, and making sure that we look not only in the construction of this facility, but also in the operations of this facility, and make sure that it's not a burden to the county. That's very primal in our consideration. As I just mentioned, probably in late December, if your board approves on the 19th, an RFP for property solicitation will be sent out. We'll also be working, staff will also be working on an RFP for environmental services. We need to do an environmental impact report on any property that we're considering to purchase. In early February, those proposals for property will be coming back to the county. The advisory team and Lionacas will review those based on the criteria that your board approves on the 19th, and then making a recommendation to your board in regards to potential sites that a community resiliency center or centers can be located. The environmental study then will be done once we know the sites that we're considering. That process will take 6 to 8 months. And after that period, then a property purchase will be concluded at that point in time. We'll transfer the property. That's basically our next steps and what the county staff has been involved in regards to keeping with the stated outline that we've developed. We're probably, I would say at this point in time, probably about a week or two off of our original schedule that we developed back in July, which is not bad. We're working through all the paperwork with the state and continue to navigate those waters as we and keep the process going. So I'm here to answer any questions you may have on this pillar.
Are there any questions? Okay.
Just looking at the approach there with the environmental review, in order to go forward, you're going to really have to know what property you're going to do, right?
That's correct.
So
That's
is there enough time? Because each property is going to take is going to be different on the environmental review. Do you have enough time on our schedule to allow that to happen?
We will, because what we'll be doing is coming to your board in late February, in your second meeting in February, with a recommendation of maybe a couple of, just 1 or 2 sites, depending on the direction I get on the 19th. And so when we ask the consultants to come in and do an environmental impact report, it might be on just 2 sites, it might be 3 sites. So with that, we're also in the RFP asking for some environmental information up front, and then when the advisory team reviews those properties, we're going to be looking at how the site was used previously, what's been on it, what kind of environmental concerns we think might be out there on those sites or not, as the case may be, to make sure that sites we're looking at are not environmentally challenging, should we say? I didn't say Tuolumne County flat, but at least they're okay. Great. So now I'll turn it over to Elliot, and he'll go over the 2 other pillars in our project.
Can you move, or is it?
It's cord limited. You want to switch space? Switch spaces?
Just make it easier.
Yeah, there you go.
Good afternoon. My name is Elliot Vanderkolk, as Mo said. I work with the Sierra Nevada Conservancy on this project full-time, managing both of these 2 pillars of our program. So I'm going to start with the Forest and Watershed Health Program first, go through a lot of these different pieces of this project, and then we'll move on to the Biomass Utilization Facility Program. So a bit of what I'm going to get into on the Forest and Watershed Health side is talk about our environmental review and where we're at with that, and then move into where we see our implementation timeline as right now. And then after that, we're going to get into each particular pillar or each project activity and give you a little bit more detail on those. So Since May, we've been working diligently on our environmental reviews. The first piece of news is that the California Natural Resources Agency has issued a waiver for CEQA for the projects within the rimfire footprint. That includes fuel reduction, biomass removal, reforestation, rangeland infrastructure improvements, and noxious weed treatments. That doesn't include our proposed fuel break projects, but I'll get into that in a minute. We've also been working on our NEPA process. So the Forest Service NEPA is complete on these projects. Since May, we have Housing and Community Development has adopted those environmental impact statements and responded to public comments that we received in that process, as well as issued a record of decision, narrowing down that decision to show which areas are going to be eligible for funding under this program. That record of decision has been finalized, and as Sue mentioned earlier, we submitted to HUD our request for release of funds, which is the last stage in the environmental review process. During that 15-day public comment period, we did receive one objection, or rather HUD received one objection to that. HUD took, I think, about a month in reviewing that letter and came back to the state with the pieces that they saw as permissible. So that doesn't necessarily mean that they're legally binding. It's just things that we have to respond to HUD. So we are in the process of resolving those with HUD right now and should be getting back to them and clarifying this process in the next month. So we're hopeful that we can have the environmental review for this piece of the project done by mid-January. That's our goal. Some of that process, this doesn't happen a lot for HUD, so it's a little bit of a learning process for them as well as us and how we respond. You got an immediate question?
Yeah, I don't want to let the moment slip here. You mentioned HUD. I remember very well when they came here and talked to us. This is way outside their experience base. So I guess my concern is that HUD can be the long pole in the tent, slowing us down because you're educating them. My question is, how much is that happening, and what do we do to help fix that if that's a problem?
Well, luckily we have experts from the Forest Service as well as myself clarifying the issues for them. I think there is a little bit of a knowledge gap for them. We're organizing a conference call with them, I believe, next week to go over some of the issues. It is a bit, the process is a little different than people typically use. This adoption process is a little different. So some of those aspects I think are a little bit more where the learning curve is rather than the particulars of the project. We still feel confident that we're going to be getting through this process and address all of the concerns that were raised in the objection process. So
I assume it's public. Who wrote the objection letter?
yeah, it's the Center for Biological Diversity.
Thank you.
So moving on, so for the rangeland projects, we're also working through for our Range Project 1. Then there's a not really adoption process, but HCD has NEPA obligations for this, which we're wrapping up this winter to begin work in the spring. And the last piece for the environmental review, as I mentioned, the fuel breaks fell out of the exemption area for CEQA, as well as there isn't any prior environmental reviews to use for that. So we're starting from scratch on that one, which we're hiring a consultant to do that work as a coordinated effort beginning this next year.
So can I take a step back, and this might be a question for the Forest Service, because I am a little bit with the objection process, and if it works similar to what the objection process is that the Forest Service now has when you have an appeal, it's not an appeal, it's an objection, but you don't have I have a lot of confidence in you, but you don't have support from other groups that didn't file objections or comments sitting at the table, i.e. presenting the very, very important reasons to be moving forward with these projects. Okay, Supervisor, bear with me on how do we get to, so when we go through the objection period process now with the Forest Service, it has become routine, even if you are not objecting, to respond so that you have a seat in the conversation. Because they were the only ones objecting, or they are the only entity that is in the process.
So I think for us, it's very different because the Forest Service, the objection process is pre-decisional in essence. And so this process is different. So the HCD made their decision, and then we go through basically, HUD adopts the decision or however that goes, and then they have this objection period. So it's a pretty different process. And so they only had one person who objected. They went through their letter and said, okay, these things are appropriate per the process. So you just need to address these things. They didn't say.
So as process, not project.
Correct. So it's a process piece. So we're, like Elliot said, we're very confident. Actually, all the parts they objected to initially were what we had already addressed in the response to comments per the decision. So it's just the process piece to make sure we've crossed all those T's and dotted all the I's. So that's what we're working on.
Will there be another objection phase for project specific?
No.
So this is just process. All right,
Yes.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that, Maria. And Patrick Talbot from HCD isn't here, but he's taking the lead on that on HCD's front on the NEPA stuff. But he had a personal emergency; he couldn't be here today. Okay, so moving into implementation.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's more of a generic NEPA question, but are there any ways to get exemptions from or waivers for NEPA? Is there any process at all or any provision?
No, this is, in essence, we did in a lot of ways because they're adopting our NEPA. So that's the biggest.
So they're using that.
Exactly. They're not
That's
modifying. They're using that, and the decision was based on
Still
that
gets
NEPA.
challenged, but
Still can be challenged. Again,
saves
that
the work.
process, everybody has their due process. So that's what we're working through.
I assume for one piece, which is what the county was really interested in, and I'll wait to hear about, but the fuel breaks.
Mhm.
I'm jumping ahead.
Sure. So we presented a similar implementation chart in May. And for the most part, we're fully on schedule. We've, with the exception of the environmental reviews, taken a little longer than we had anticipated. So some of those bars have moved up a little bit. You can kind of see here from fuel reduction to biomass removal, finishing reviews the first quarter of next year, moving into implementation over the next 3 years. And so those areas are treated first to reduce the fuel loading, so that then we can reforest those areas later. So there's sort of a delayed process of how you get to the reforestation piece. Similarly, the reforestation piece is for activity 2. Again, that environmental review is separate, but on a similar timeline from the fuel reduction. And we're going to be moving into doing some site preparation this spring. And those areas that are prepared this spring will be planted in the next year in 2019, and so on as it moves down. As I mentioned, for fuel break construction, we're going to be entering into the environmental review phase this next year. We anticipate 3 seasons worth of work there, hopefully getting done in the first 2, but with the third as a contingency. For rangeline infrastructure, we have 2 different projects. One, as I mentioned, is already, the environmental review is pretty much done with the exception of HCD's. These are probably a categorical exclusion under NEPA for them, so that paperwork will be done and review process will be done this winter to start implementation this spring on some of those projects. And then noxious weed treatments these are authorized under the same decision as the reforestation one. So they follow a similar timeline, and we're working forward with those.
Hold it back up just a second.
Sure.
So what's your drop dead date on this grant? I don't remember.
The drop dead date, the money expires basically the appropriation expires from Congress on September 30th, 2022. So working backwards from there, our final deadlines for doing work on the ground is about April to May 2022.
Not a lot of margin. And we're not getting that much done when I look at the next page.
Sure.
We'll come back.
I'll show you in each activity. I'll show you a little bit of the timeline of how we get to our targets. So again, this is the same target that I presented out in May. Our target for fuel reduction to biomass removal is about 4,600 acres. That's what we're shooting to treat. This next spring and summer, we're hoping to get to 1,500 acres. The Forest Service is out right now looking at areas. As you all know, this last winter was a pretty hectic winter on the road system in the forest. So we have experienced some challenges, but luckily we have sufficient latitude in our environmental documents to accommodate different areas. So we have about 3 times as many acres, or 3 to 4 times as many acres as we need authorized to adapt to any new circumstances that we see. But for next spring, we have a pretty good idea of where we'd like to go. Then we anticipate ratcheting that up in the following years, but starting at 1,500 acres in this next year.
Back up just a second. And just to put this in perspective, rimfire was 257,000 plus. Severe vegetation burn, as I recall, was something like 68,000 acres, and moderate vegetation burn was like 98,000 acres. We're just barely scratching in these numbers. Just put it in perspective what it would cost if we could get it all done. And the effort that we're putting in and the money we're spending to get this little bit done.
Certainly. Luckily, the Forest Service has already done a fair amount of work. I know their need is definitely very large. We're doing the best we can. But I appreciate.
I'm just pointing it out, put it in perspective of the immensity of the task.
Certainly. There's also a pretty hefty reforestation task as well, and our target right now we do have a broad range, 3,500 to 4,500 acres. That really depends on some of how the bids go with the contractors. Some of the treatments that we've prescribed can be more costly, and based on contractor availability, we've buffered that estimate. As I mentioned, in the spring we're going to be doing site preparation, which is mostly herbicide spraying and a few other things to prepare about 500 acres for planting in 2019. So then in 2019 we follow up with areas that we did site preparation on, as well as the areas that were treated for fuel reduction in the previous year in 2018 to do 1,500 more acres of site preparation. So that then gets planted in 2020, and then we plant the 500 acres that we prepared the site the year before. So it's kind of a sequential process that you can see here. And this shows us getting to our timeline of, in the spring of 2021, getting to 1,500 to 2,000 acres planted, which meets our objective of 3,500 to 4,500 acres. And then what's not on here is in the spring of 2022, we'll go out and we'll remove competing vegetation, which are called release treatments, on the areas that we reforested, just to make sure that the trees we put in the ground are going to survive. So 2022 is mostly just to protect the seedlings that we've already planted previously. So as of now, we're very confident that we can reach this goal, even with the delays in the environmental review process to date. So now getting to fuel breaks. I believe I mentioned, and I apologize that I don't have the map here, but again, our target with this is about just under 2,000 acres of fuel break expansion and some new construction. Since May, I've been out with CAL FIRE and the Forest Service scouting and confirming these locations, because there was a little bit of when we put the application together, we weren't final on some of the project areas, and there's been a few changes since the application was submitted. So we now have those locations very well mapped out and ready to go. Adam Freeze is here from CAL FIRE. They've started talking to landowners about these projects to get authorization to enter their land and bring a fuel break through where they cross private land. And I'm working with HCD right now to get another RFP out for, as I mentioned, the CEQA and NEPA consultant that will be reviewing these projects. We believe that most of these projects, based on similar work that's been done by both the Forest Service and by CAL FIRE, that these will be either categorical exemptions or exclusions. So not full waivers, but they are a lower level of review based on small alterations to land. So we have tools we can do to expedite that process. So we're going to be hiring that person on, and we think that with the multiple land ownerships and boundaries and the sheer size of this network, it's probably going to take us most of the year in 2018, which gives us at least three solid field seasons to complete the work. And go ahead.
What was the final width? In the Natural Resource Committee meeting, we talked an awful lot about the need for these to be wider, so that especially on these landscapes, as the embers are jumping. So what was the width that you came up with?
It varies depending on the area, and Adam, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's 300 to 350.
Yeah, about 300 feet is what we shoot for.
Which a lot of them right now are about 150 to 200.
It varies. On the rim contingency piece, some of that's as narrow as just a couple dozer blades wide that was put in during the fire. So, and then some of those areas have already been treated and are maybe 200 feet wide. So, but what we're shooting for is about 300 feet wide. So.
Thank you.
So moving on to rangeland. I went over most of this in the previous slide, but just so it's here again, we're wrapping up our environmental review this winter, getting to some high priority fences this spring. And beginning our environmental review, we have our CEQA waived for these projects, but we do not have the NEPA for HUD complete for these parts of the project. So we're going to be working on that this next summer to begin work in 2019. And noxious weed treatments are our final piece. We're figuring out some of the places we want to do these. The first priority is to treat invasives up on Jawbone Flat. We hope to do that first as a prescribed burn, and then follow up with an integrated pest management approach. So Maria can talk more about that if you have more questions about that, but we're trying to figure out how to get that started. Hopefully we'll be able to either start in this spring or next fall.
This spring? That would be good. The Medusa head was rampant there in the winter immediately after the fire. And that stuff grows exponentially.
Yeah, that's
one of the things that should have probably been put on here is we're talking at HCD and with the core team when planting begins to do a volunteer day for people from HCD and where we would publicize it through the state agencies and then up in Tuolumne as well in order to really make it a community effort and really sort of tie the effort to resiliency and state's efforts and the county's efforts and the Forest Service efforts and the Sierra Nevada Conservancy's efforts in order to really make it operational at the community level. So if that's something that the board would like to be informed about and join us on, we will certainly keep you apprised of that through Mo and our certainly with the board's buy-in, our media department at HCD would like to publicize this and work on possibly getting media up here in order to be with us that day. We're thinking the Forest Service already does volunteer days and that for that kind of work, and so we were just looking to tie in to something like that. So if the board has any comments about whether that's a good thing, a bad thing, something that is appropriate, then I'd certainly like to hear your comments on that.
So, I'm going to think that it would be appropriate. Yeah.
Yeah,
so we would like to be kept in that loop.
Okay, wonderful. Will do.
So any other questions on the forest and watershed health piece before I move on to the biomass? Yeah.
And this is probably redundant, but it's so important to this county, and I'm going to go back to the field breaks piece because it was really the number one piece that came out of the Natural Resource Committee, and I think from the county's perspective. As you're going through the NEPA CEQA process, is that going to be a process piece only and not a project-specific piece? Is there something that the county should be following and continuing to comment on as we move through that?
It really depends on when we have the final boundaries of it and the consultant starts preparing documentation. It will determine the level of review necessary, which will determine what kind of public comment period there is. I'm certainly going to keep you in mind as I think about this.
Elliot, please report back to at least the Natural Resource Committee as this progresses. So we don't want to. We can't afford to miss something here.
Yeah,
certainly.
Let me put it in slightly different words. The major stakeholder in the success of this thing are the people of Tuolumne County, and the Board of Supervisors wants to make sure that we're on the list to support this activity any way we need to, and if that means we have to quote object, we want to object because we need to be part of the process.
Great. Yeah, no problem. Did you have something you wanted to add, Marie?
Yeah, I just say that it's NEPA CEQA is like I like to call it because it's Forest Service NEPA, HUD NEPA, and CEQA. So it'll be 3 parts of the process. But we really are we believe this will be a categorical exclusion, which makes the process simpler, more expedited, and there is no objection process in essence, right? People can sue us as always for everything we do, but that's what we're hoping, and we think it fits very well into some of the categories. So.
Okay. So moving on to the biomass utilization facility. Again, I'm just going to run through some of the phase 1 updates that we have and then get into some of the timelines as we look forward. So as Sue mentioned, we issued our phase 1 consultant RFP in September. So that is to look at biomass feedstocks, project feasibility, and a number of other things within our scope of work. And during that time, we received three qualified proposals from different qualified firms, and we reviewed those and scored them. And HCD is issued because HCD will be the fiscal sponsor of this, so they'll be doing the contracting with S&C as the project lead. HCD has issued a notice of intent to award this contract to the Beck Group. They're based out of Portland, Oregon, and have completed similar studies for the state of California and other places. They also have a few subcontractors that are local to the area, including Chris Trott, CT Bioenergy Consulting, as well as the Tuolumne River Trust, Patrick Copel, to help with some of the public outreach pieces and community engagement pieces of the project. So we're very excited to have them on board. Right now, we're negotiating final terms with them, and we hope to have them starting work in January. So as I mentioned, hopefully they'll be starting in January if we get our contract signed. And based on the proposal they submitted to us, we're anticipating that they'll be doing this initial community engagement efforts in February of next year. And from that, they're going to be continuing to give updates regularly, both with me and alone. But we anticipate that they'll have their feedstock assessment looking at what types and kinds of feedstock can support a facility in the area, keeping in mind the other uses that are already very prevalent within the area. So we're hoping that that'll be done in May of next year. Then they're going to start looking, based on that feedstock, what types of technologies are feasible to invest in Tuolumne County. So that can be bioenergy, it could be other wood products. So there's a very wide range of different end uses we're looking at this stage. From there, we'll be presenting our final results of all of this to the public in next fall, and having a kickoff for sort of our development phase, where we want to invite project developers, members of the public, to show what we've come up with, what we think is possible, and have them then pitch to us what some ideas are for developing. And so we haven't finalized our instrument for investing in phase 2 yet, because we want to see what comes out of this first phase. So if it looks like there are smaller facilities that could be distributed throughout the county, we may do something like a notice of funding availability, and we could fund multiple projects. Or if we think that there's a really clear single project idea or single campus or integrated wood products facility, then we may do an RFP, which would probably be limited to one award. So that is to come, and we hope to get great feedback from the community as well as this board as we go through that process and analyze some of the feasibility over the next year. Part of my job right now is and I've already begun this talking at a biomass conference a few weeks ago, is to get the word out to project developers, to have them start thinking about this opportunity, because I think it's a tremendous opportunity where we're going to be investing almost $20 million. So, but the state has no interest, obviously, in operating this facility. So we want someone to take this on, and we want them to start thinking about their ideas now. Looks like you have a question.
So the other two pillars had to be done within the evacuation footprint of the fire. Did I hear you correctly? This one does not?
No, not exactly. So it has to serve the area impacted by the fire in the evacuation zone. So that is sort of a little broader, and Sue's looking at me, and I want to make sure I had that right.
Essentially, all the money has to serve the target area, which was evac warning, and then the burn scar. So we don't actually have to site right in the burn scar, although forest work outside of the burn scar wouldn't make sense. So that one's got to be there. But the other two pillars can be outside the footprint. But given the size of the county, the evac and evac warning areas are probably the ones that make the most sense in terms of looking for where the biomass might go, or where the community resilience centers must go. If we can make a solid argument for why it needs to be further away, then we certainly have that conversation with HUD. Excuse me, I don't think the answer is no ever. It's just a matter of let's have that conversation if there is a better, different, bigger idea that hasn't come forward yet. Are you thinking some?
No, I'll explore thought after.
Yeah, sure. And I'll be continuing to engage with the Natural Resource Committee, and we can talk about the biomass facility during that time as well. Randy?
You have a unique opportunity to partner with RCRC in their. They had a conference. You weren't there, but Jim was there, and others were there from the governor's office. Anyway, opportunity because they're pushing this FREED program, Foreign Resiliency, Environment, and Economic Development, and they are looking exactly at this kind of thing to do things. So if we partner with them, I think we can expand our ability to reach out, not only with the diversity of the things we're looking at, but with searching for investors to do the real work when we get there.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I'm glad you brought that up because we always see this as a pilot project. It's a very large one, but we want to be able to think about opportunities to replicate this and take our lessons learned and apply it throughout our whole region this year, based on the Sierra Nevada Conservancy. So we look forward to exploring that opportunity. So moving forward with the implementation timeline, after this either NOFA or RFP goes out next year, we're going to be negotiating that and selecting winners on that piece in spring of 2019. And from there, we're going to start structuring financing, working on engineering design and environmental reviews, and we anticipate that'll take a good 1.5 or 2 years, to be honest. And looking at breaking ground in 2020, that gives us a little over 2 years to finish the project.
How innovative can you be?
Yeah, very. It depends on what you have in mind. It has to be able to be built. So,
well, I'm thinking in some cases of facilities where there are pilot facilities already operating, and then something that might be a little further reach. But we can talk.
Certainly.
I guess this pillar more than the other two for me, I have my biggest concerns about the timeline, because we know what the time is typically to get through some of these, if it's a new facility. And so I say good luck. I want to be optimistic, but I guess I'm thinking along the lines of what Supervisor Hanfeld just said, and how do we be creative and maybe look at enhancing some existing infrastructure.
Certainly, and that's a piece of our phase 1 feasibility is thinking about what opportunities are there with the infrastructure we have. There are some challenges with the HUD funding and what we can fund and what we can't, but I think there could be opportunities to either expand or build off of some infrastructure that we already have in this county. So I encourage people to talk to me and talk to the rest of the core team if they talk with potential developers, so they can start thinking about this now, because the sooner that they start, the better odds that they will be successful in making this work, and the more competitive their applications will probably be.
Any other questions?
Just the admonition that we, particularly in the case of some of the work on the forest, I'm worried about that timetable and not using the money. I mean, letting it go down or go back is just a big mistake, and so all I'm asking is where any of the members of the board can help, or other organizations let us go help push those things so we meet our deadlines. We just absolutely have to do that. Don't want to give the money back or have a half-finished project, if you will. Not a good result. And in the case of the forest work, like I said before, it's just the immense amount of work to do a small portion of what needs to be done, but it's essential to get done. Thanks. By the way, thanks for coming here and for the hard work. I know there's a lot in this, and the devil's in the details, and we're not getting into much of those, but thanks for what you do.
So if my colleagues have no further questions, I'd like to ask if there's any public comment at this time.
Thank you. Briefly, my name's Lori Sylvester, and I am interested in the biomass portion of this. But I heard questions coming from the board that were part of my concerns. If there's ways that we can look at some of the plants that are already in existence, and I realize you're saying as to be built, but to really encourage where we have infrastructure already there. So I'm really happy to hear you mention that, because those were my kind of driving issues about why be redundant when we can be efficient with what we have. And it sounds like some of our issues are getting the biomass to what we already have. So if that's going to be addressed in there, but thank you very much, and thanks for this whole grant process. It's really exciting.
Thank you, and I just would encourage the public, if you're listening, to participate as we have more public meetings coming up, and I would certainly encourage all the public to participate and share their comments. Mo, did you have something else?
Yes, also in line with that, the county's website, we are posting everything that we receive on NDRC, and we're getting out of it. So, for example, this presentation that was just presented to your board will be posted this afternoon on the county's website under NDRC.
All right. And so with that, then, I want to thank all of you for joining us today. It was a lot of good information. We appreciate the updates. And just so you know, we do have constituents that are asking, and they are, they're wondering what's going on. And so these periodic updates are really helpful. And again, as soon as we can publicize, Mo, when these public meetings are going to be, so people have an opportunity to get them on their calendar, that would be great too. So thank you. We really appreciate it. And with that, the meeting is adjourned.